This is the story of Dinah. What actually happened? Who, if anyone, is at fault? And what are some of the lessons we can learn, or what is the lesson that we are going to learn from this chapter?
We're so glad to worship you, Yah. We're so glad to give you our heart, singing, Holy, holy, Abba, Yah Almighty.
Hallelujah. Well, shalom. Shalom, Mishpachah. It is an honor and it is a privilege to be before you again on another 6-day study. And I feel like my Akeem, they kind of set me up for this one. It seems like I always get the controversial chapters, but all praise to the Most High Yah. He's helped me study it out, and he's shown me some things that I didn't see before. So prayerfully, we will learn some things with Abba Yah's help and the Ruach guiding us this evening. Before we get into it, I do want to give a disclaimer. We're going to be in Bereshit 34, Genesis 34. This is the story of Dinah, and this is probably not going to be a message for young ears. It's I'm pretty sure I kept everything PG-13, but again, if you have very, very young ones, then there's some things that you don't want them to be exposed to or hear. This is probably not going to be the message for them. But with that said, last week, Akyoel, he covered Bereshit or Genesis 33. And in that chapter, we learned some things. We learned some things that we may not have seen before. We learned about how Jacob shepherded his flock and his family. And also we learned how he depended on Yah and he used the terrain and sound judgment to show reverence to and or to appease his brother Esau in order to overcome his fear and to make it to his destination. So we should all by now be familiar with 2 Timothy 1:7, and it says, "For Elohim have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." And the thing about fear is that once you have exhibited fear, it takes time, trust, and your steadfastness and your willingness to trust in Yah to completely overcome it. It doesn't just disappear on its own, even once you understand that it is not of Elohim. Now, if you are wise, you can use the knowledge of your fear to remind you and to keep you close to Yah, understanding that there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear hath torment, and he that feareth is not made perfect or complete or whole in love. Now, at the end of Bereshit 33 or Genesis 33, we saw Jacob or Yaakov arrive in Shechem or Shalom, which means peaceable, complete, friendly. And he arrived at the city of Shechem, and Shechem means between the shoulders or between burdens. And it's possibly named so because Shechem, as you can see, it sits in the valley below and in between the mounts of Gerizim and Mount Ebal. And these are the mounts that the tribe of Yasharel stood upon, pronouncing the blessings and the curses prior to them entering into the land. Now, just outside of Shechem, we are told that Yaakov purchases a parcel of field from the children of Hamor for 100 pieces of silver. And it is here that Yaakov pitches his tent, builds a house, makes booths for his cattle, erects an altar, and calls it El Eloah Yisrael, or the mighty El of Yisrael. And Yaakov names this place as a whole Sukkot. Now, tonight, we will be going through chapter 34, which happens to be another chapter that causes some division in belief and understanding in Yasharel or in the awakening. So, we're going to be looking to answer a few things. What actually happened? Who, if anyone, is at fault? And what are some of the lessons we can learn, or what is the lesson that we are going to learn from this chapter?
Chapter 34, verse 1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hittite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. And he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Toda Aki for that. So, Mishpachah, and you can take your mics off mute for a moment. I am curious to know what some of you think about these first three verses. What do you think? What was Dinah going to see? And what happened? What do you think? Anyone?
It seems she went out to just learn about the people, the women of the land, because it
Okay.
says daughters, and things didn't go so well for her.
All right. Anyone else? What do you think? So no wrong answers.
It sounds like she went out by herself, which is probably not a good idea.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely sounds like she was taken advantage of.
Okay.
Cry out.
All right.
I think Shechem noticed that she wasn't a Shebrew, a Israelite, and that she was her custom, maybe the way she dressed was a little bit different than the ladies or the daughters of that land were.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I was thinking maybe she shouldn't have gone. I was thinking maybe it was a curiosity of hers as far as a different culture and, a different set of women. And maybe I'm wrong, but I was thinking that, she was wrong for wanting to be in that environment. I don't know.
Shalom, everyone. Yeah, Ben Moray, it makes me wonder, how she could have been alone. A young woman was often chaperoned when she was outside of the area where she lived. So I often wondered how even if there were, for instance, women overseeing her. Remember, she's a daughter of Yaakov,
Right.
okay? And so if there were servants or someone there to protect her, we're told that a woman is supposed to cry out if something like that were to on. Did he just snatch her and kidnap her? Like what? How in the world did she get away from whoever might have been with her?
All
That he
right.
could have even done that. That's what I've always wondered, and I'll yield.
All right. All praises.
Yeah. So yeah, I see two things. Number one, he's got a lot of nerve because it says after he defiled her, then his soul clave unto her, and he loved her and spoke kindly unto her. It's a little late for kind words, my man. You just defiled me. How you gonna try to be nice after you mess with me? But verse 2 also says that he was a prince of the country. So it sounds like he abused his power, his position of authority, to do what he did, and then tried to like smooth it over by speaking kindly.
All right. All praises. Toda for all of you, for all of your comments. The reason I asked this question is because there are several extra biblical, and that means outside of the Bible or canon, pseudepigraphical and that means falsely attributed, books or accounts of this event out there. And sometimes these extra biblical books, these pseudepigraphal books, they leak into our understanding of this story. So let's check out a few of these just to see what they say before we move forward. First, we have the Testament of Levi, and this is chapter 1, verse 7. And it says, I, Levi, was born in Haran, and I came with my father to Shechem. And I was young, about 20 years of age, when, with Simeon, I wrought vengeance on Hamor for our sister Dinah. And I was feeding the flocks in Abel Mall. The spirit of understanding, of Yahuwah came upon me, and I saw all men corrupting their way, and that unrighteousness had built for itself walls, and lawlessness sat upon towers. And I was grieving for the race of the sons of men. And I prayed to Yahuwah that I might be saved. Now, Levi supposedly explains that he received understanding from the Spirit of Yahuwah, saw lawlessness and men corrupting their ways, and was about 20 years old when he and Simeon killed the men of Shechem. Now, the age of Levi can easily be imagined if you understand the timing of the births from Genesis 29 and 30. More than likely, Levi was in his 20s. What I did not read to you is further along in this chapter and in this book, the author, who's probably not Levi, proposes that at this time, Levi is given the revelation that he and his seed will be ministers to the Most High, that their tribe is going to be set apart. What is most alarming to me about this book, and it's not just in the verse that I have, is the way the author mentions race. You see here where it says, for the race of the sons of men, this is a subtle way of saying the race of who the world calls Yisrael. The Bible never mentions race in this way. The Bible speaks of ethnos or ethnicity, but not race. It may read race in English, but that is not what's being said in the original language. You see, race is a social construct created in the 1700s by a Saxo-Gauls/German physician, and it is based off of physical traits, whereas ethnos or ethnicity is based off of common ancestry, language, and belief. Because I recognize the deception in the writings of this book, as well as other misleading verses and texts in this book, for me, this book I classify as null and void of truth. So that means that nothing that is said here we should be taking into account, or I take into account. Let's move on. The next is Jubilees, or the book of Jubilees, commonly called Little Genesis. This is chapter 30, verses 1 through 4. It says, in the first year of the 6th week, he went up to Salem, to the east of Shechem, in peace, in the 4th month. And there they carried off Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, into the house of Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land. And he lay with her and defiled her. And she was a little girl, a child of 12 years. And he besought his father and her brothers that she might be given to him to wife. And Jacob and his sons were wroth because of the men of Shechem, for they had defiled Dinah, their sister. And they spake to them with evil intent, and dealt deceitfully with them, and beguiled them. And Simeon and Levi came unexpectedly to Shechem, and executed judgment on all the men of Shechem, and slew all the men who they found in it, and left not a single one remaining in it. They slew all in torments because they had dishonored their sister, Dinah. And thus, let it not again be done from henceforth that a daughter of Yasharel be defiled. For judgment is ordained in Shamaim or heaven against them, that they should destroy with the sword all the men of the Shechemites, because they had wrought shame in Israel. So, one thing that quickly jumps out is this book proposes that this judgment was passed down to Simeon and Levi from the Shamaim. Now, the author of Jubilees states that they, this would be Jacob and his sons, dealt deceitfully with Hamor and Shechem. We will get into that as we get further in the study, but I found that statement to be a tad bit deceptive. More importantly, it suggests that Dinah was 12 years old. This is information that the Bible does not give. So we have to ask, is it possible that she was close to 12? I would say it is possible, but given the circumstances, I don't believe it is likely. It all depends on how you view several factors. Genesis 30 tells us that Dinah was the child Leah bore right before Rachel bore Yosef. That would make her older than Yosef, maybe, maybe not. There are really no contextual clues in Genesis 30 to give us more information. But most biblical scholars believe that the events that we see in Bereshit or Genesis 34 up until Yosef is sold into Egypt happen fairly quickly, which would make Joseph at this time somewhere in the vicinity of his teens, maybe even his latter teens, and Dinah possibly older. The mentioning of her age being 12 in the book of Jubilees is oddly exactly the same age the Talmud says the age of consent to marriage is for a girl. Not sure how that works, because the Talmud also permits a man to have sex with a girl as long as she is 3 years old and a day. Not my words. They actually believe that the girl's hymen will repair itself. I see the mentioning of her age being 12 in the book of Jubilees as a way to shift the responsibility from what occurred. Nevertheless, for me, this too is null and void of truth. Let us move on. The book of Jasher, chapter 33, verses 1 through 13. And in some time after Jacob went away from the borders of the land, and he came to the land of Shalem, that is the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, and he rested in front of the city, and he bought a parcel of field which was there from the children of Hamor, the people of the land, for 5 shekels. And Jacob there built himself a house, and he pitched his tent there, and he made booths for his cattle. Therefore he called the name of that place Sukkot. And Jacob remained in Sukkot a year and 6 months. At that time, some of the women of the inhabitants of the land went to the city of Shechem to dance and rejoice with the daughters of the people of the city. And when they went forth, then Rachel and Leah, the wives of Jacob, with their families, also went to behold the rejoicing of the daughters of the city. And Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, also went along with them and saw the daughters of the city. And they remained there before these daughters, whilst all the people of the city were standing by them to behold their rejoicings. And all the great people of the city were there. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the prince of the land, was also standing there to see them. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, sitting with her mother before the daughters of the city. And the damsel pleased him greatly, and he there asked his friends and his people, saying, Whose daughter is that sitting amongst the women, whom I do not know in this city? And they said unto him, Surely this is the daughter of Jacob, the son of Isaac the Hebrew, who has dwelt in this city for some time. And when it was reported that the daughters of the land were going forth to rejoice, she went with her mother and her maidservants to sit amongst them, as thou seest. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and when he looked at her, his soul became fixed upon Dinah. And he sat and he had her taken by force. And Dinah came to the house of Shechem, and he seized her forcibly, and lay with her, and humbled her. And he loved her exceedingly, and placed her in his house. And they came and told the thing unto Jacob. And when Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, Jacob sent 12 of his servants to fetch Dinah from the house of Shechem. And they went and came to the house of Shechem to take away Dinah from there. And when they came, Shechem went out to them with his men and drove them from his house. And he would not suffer them to come before Dinah. But Shechem was sitting with Dinah, kissing and embracing her before their eyes. The author of this account completely abandons what we are told in the Bible. It says, for one, Jacob purchased the land for 5 shekels, whereas the Bible says it was 100. It also mentions that Dinah was taken by force by men that Shechem sent, whereas the Bible says he took her and lay with her. We really don't need to go into detail with this one, and there's many more things in the book of Jasher that are extremely suspect. Again, null and void of truth. So, I ask you, and you can put it in the chat, can we reliably use any of the information from any of these accounts? A lot of us have been taught, believe, or want to believe that Dinah was violated by force. But I believe that careful examination of what the Bible or the text tells us proves otherwise. In verse 1, it says that Dinah went out to see the daughters of the land. If you read this in the interlinear, it says she went to visit the daughters of the land. What that tells me is that possibly Dinah went to hang out with some young ladies from a different culture. Whether that is right or wrong has no bearing on what occurs. Just stay with me. Next, Shechem, who happens to be the prince, sees her and takes her. The word here does mean take, but in a very wide sense. It can also mean receive, fetch, bring, get, carry, marry, or to buy. He takes her, lies with her, and defiles her. We will come back to this. Next, it says his soul clave unto Dinah. He loved her and spake kindly to her. If everything we have ever been told of this account is true, then Shechem has to be the nicest rapist to ever walk the face of the earth. Let's deal with defiled. In the plain sense of the word, to defile something is to make it unclean, period. When a husband and a wife engages in the act, the culmination of that act makes them both unclean or defiled. Leviticus 15, 16 through 18. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until the even. And every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water and be unclean until the even. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water and be unclean until the even. Issue is, or the issue is, defiled is not even actually in the text here. How this actually reads is, and he humbled her, or and humbled her. When we take into consideration how the next verse reads, it begins to make more sense. It says that Shechem loved her and spake kindly to her, or does it? Again, here, how this actually reads is he spake to the heart of the damsel. Speaking to someone's heart implies that the recipient of what was spoken accepts the words spoken. So, what are these first three verses really telling us? Allow me to paraphrase. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went to hang out with the young ladies of the land. Shechem, the prince, saw her, and they lied down together, and he took Dinah's virginity. He was enamored with Dinah and spake to her heart. I ask you, contrary to what we may have thought or been taught, was this rape?
I'm still struggling with consensual or rape, to be honest with you. I can't decide.
Dinah had a bunch of brothers. And again, I still say, she would not have been alone. Why is the account not saying, they grabbed her kicking and screaming? You know, it seems that, you know, they're living in the land. Like you said earlier, Moray, she may have gone to visit someone that she had, gotten to know. And you know how young people are. He's the prince and she's good looking, and it seems more leaning towards this was maybe it went too far. It's like you can't play with fire and not be burned, but what they did, she doesn't seem to be in opposition to it, or else she would have cried out, it seems, in my opinion. And
We
I'll
will talk about Iman. We'll find out. We're going to keep going. We're going to find out. A code put something in the chat. I want to speak to this real quick. It says, it sounds like he told her what she needed to hear in order to get what he wanted. Yes, yes, that is what men do or boys do. That is what we do. Second portion, a young child that age can be easily deceived. What do you mean by young child that age? Do you mean young child as in 12? Or do you mean young child as in under the age of marriage? Where does it say she was 12 years old? So the notion that she was 12 years old comes from the book of Jubilees. This book is considered a pseudepigrapha, is what it's called. What that means is falsely attributed or fake attribute. All right. So that's where the notion of her being 12 comes from. What I mentioned is that this age 12 is oddly similar to what the Talmud, which we do not follow the Talmud, considers is the age of consent. So, with that being said, we can't automatically say she was 12. We have no indication that she was 12. In fact, we have more indication that she was probably a little bit older than 12. I'm not going to say she was 25, or she was more than likely a little bit older, a little bit older. But let's move on. Let's move on.
And Shechem spake unto his father, saying, get me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel, in line with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife, and make ye marriages with us, and give your daughter unto us, and take our daughter unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as you shall say unto me. But give me the damsel to wife.
Hold on, Aki. So, Mishpachah, what are your feelings around these set of verses?
Like he should have asked for her hand in marriage. I mean, to be his wife before he defiled her. If
Yeah,
he saw that she was beautiful and he loved her, so that would have been the right thing to do, to go to her father and ask for her hand.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say it seems like the father of Shechem was trying to smooth things over, like he knew his son messed up, so he was just trying to kind of smooth things over, like, let us be a family and all this stuff. Like, I'm not gonna say discount like it wasn't a big deal, but he's just trying to fix it so it won't get ugly.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. All right.
One thing I noticed, and I I don't know, I was thinking about Jacob, excuse me, and how it seemed like his sons were more angry than he was. They were the ones who were so angry about it. And I was wondering, do you think maybe that's because Jacob knew, I don't know, maybe he in his mind was like, she knew she shouldn't have been out there in the first place, or why did she go out there? I'm just like, because you would think of a father, is the first thing he gonna do is be very angry about his daughter, being with this guy. But it just seems like to me like the sons were more angry.
That's very good that you picked that up, and your question will get it will get answered. But to me, Shechem, it appears, he informs his father of what has transpired. And it's not a good position for Hamor to be in. But nevertheless, he goes and speaks to Jacob. And it tells us that Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled Dinah. Now, in this instance, defiled is definitely used here. It is the word tameh, and it means to be foul or to be contaminated, which we discussed previously. In layman's terms, he finds out that Dinah and Shechem had sex. It tells us that Jacob holds his peace until his sons return. What I see here is Jacob informs them of what has transpired once they return. This is possibly due to them returning and seeing guests, i.e., Shechem and Hamor. It says that the sons of Israel were grieved, which is a natural response. But then it goes on to say they were very wroth. Very wroth means vehemently angry. This is not a normal response. It reminds me of what Yah asked Jonah, doest thou well to be angry? James 1:19 and 20. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of a man worketh not the righteousness of Elohim. Ephesians 4:25 through 27. Wherefore, put away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be ye angry and sin not, which means be ye angry, but sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Colon, which means it's going to expound on what was just said. Neither give place to the devil. The sons of Israel's reasoning is because Shechem had wrought folly in Israel. Technically, Shechem had committed folly or foolishness, which is what folly means, with Israel. In my opinion, the sons' vehement anger indicates that they may be overstepping their bounds a bit. This is an issue for Israel to deal with, and not the sons. But as we saw with the passage in Ephesians, anger unchecked gives place for the devil. Hamor informs Jacob that Shechem is in love with Dinah and is seeking his permission to make her his wife. Hamor offers the daughters of Shechem and the ability to dwell and trade together. Shechem therefore asks for grace from Israel and his sons and offers to pay whatever bride price is asked. So in verses 1 to 3 of this chapter, we have the deed that was done. And in verses 4 through 12, we read the fallout from that event. Before we pass any judgment, let us find out what Torah has to say about this before we move forward. Deuteronomy 22, 23 through 27. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her. Now, Dinah was not betrothed to a husband, but this still applies. Then ye shall bring them both out unto the gate of that city, and ye shall stone them with stones, that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife, so thou shalt put away evil from among you. Now, like I said, it still applies. Well, we can still use this, but it doesn't apply to this situation because one, Dinah wasn't married, or I mean, she wasn't betrothed, and she was not a wife. All right, but let's move on. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lie with her shall die. All right, now this could apply, even though she's not betrothed, but this applies to if the man forced her, right? So that's that. And then it goes on to say, but unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. Let's move on. 28 through 29. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, doesn't mention betrothal or wife, which is not betrothed, and lay hold of her, and lie with her, and they be found, or they be found out, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her, or took her virginity. He may not put her away all his days. Which situation applies? Was it force or was it not? You don't have to answer. Because this is a long set of verses, I'll go ahead and read these. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister, and they said unto him, or unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this will we consent unto you, if ye will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Then will we give our daughter unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if ye will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's sons. And the young man deferred not to do this thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of their city, and communed with the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore, let them dwell in the land, and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised? Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearken all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. Now, I didn't I didn't mention it in the previous set of verses, but I will mention it here because it is the sons of Jacob speaking, which kind of validates the point. In the previous set of verses, it was Hamor who was speaking. But we get some interesting information here, and that is Dinah is not the only daughter. It says daughters. In typical biblical fashion, Dinah is mentioned because the event revolves around her. Dinah is probably also listed in Genesis 30 in preparation for the telling of this event. It is plausible to suggest that it is very likely that Jacob had other daughters, if not maybe some of his sons had daughters. It is possible that he may have had other sons as well. We find this pattern first in Genesis 5, 3 through 4. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness after his image and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. If that is too difficult to digest, then ponder this. If servants in Jacob's house had sons and daughters, those would be considered Jacob's as well. Exodus 21, 2 through 4. If you buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the seventh he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he shall go out by himself. Do we see this before? Is there a precedence of this happening before? Yes, there is. Genesis 15, 2 and 3. And Abram said, Yahuwah Elohim, what will you give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is my heir. The word for steward here is actually ben, meaning child or son. And in verse 3, where it says one born in my house, it actually says a servant in my house is my heir. Again, the sons of Jacob are speaking here, and we are told that they answer Shechem and Hamor deceitfully. I initially wondered why we were being told about the deceit prior to the deceit even happening. But then I believe Yah revealed it to me. Let's take a look. The reason we are given for why they answered this way is because Shechem had defiled their sister. This is immediately followed by a colon, and as I mentioned before, it tells us that an elaboration is forthcoming and that we need to listen to everything they say following the colon to figure it out. The request by Shechem and Hamor, although not well thought out and would have huge ramifications to their authority, is simple as this. Let us come together and become one people. And this is fine, but requires a few things. Number one, recognition that Yahuwah is Elohim, and there is no other Elohim. Number two, follow Torah in its entirety. Number three, embrace the covenant. This is where the circumcision comes in. Number four, remain obedient to Torah. This is why Jacob's sons mention that it would be a reproach to them if they are not circumcised. So, where is the deceit or the deception? It's really in two words, one of which is Netnell's favorite: if and then. If ye will be as we be, then we will give our daughters to you. Us being told that they answered deceitfully is the Bible telling us that even at this moment, they had no plans to honor anything they were telling Shechem and Hamor. Exodus 20:16, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. False witness means an untruthful or deceitful testimony or speaking. And we are told in verse 19 that the young man, this is Shechem, deferred not to do this thing. This means he did not procrastinate. Does that remind you of anyone? Genesis 17:10 through 14. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the circumcised and the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And then in verse 23, and Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the self same day as Elohim had said unto him. Shechem and Hamor, they depart from Jacob and his sons, and they come to the gate of their city and explain to their men that Israel is peaceful and willing to consent to dwell with us as long as we become circumcised as they are circumcised. And we are told that every male of their city was circumcised. We get this odd statement from Shechem and Hamor to their men in verse 23. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell with us. Many of us focus on this verse and see it as deceptive or an ulterior motive on the part of Shechem and Hamor. My opinion is that this thought may be driven by preconceptions of the entirety of this event altogether. Not saying that it is not a bit suspicious, because it is, but my opinion is this may be uttered this way by Shechem and Hamor to their men as a way to pacify any of their concerns. We do indeed again see this happen again. In Joshua, the men of Gibeon, which are neighbors of Shechem, they deceive Israel. And also Abimelech, the son of Gideon, by a Shechemite woman, uses this tactic on his brethren of Shechem. But in this instance, what is uttered here does not impact what occurs nor why it occurs, no matter how we want to see it. We should not let someone else's ulterior motives deter us from doing what we know is right in Yah's eyes.
I wanted to ask about this because verse 23 to me seems like it was a setup. They said, hey, look, get circumcised and we'll, and everything. And Shechem and his father are looking at circumcision as a physical thing, so they could be a part of Israel. Circumcision is more than that, and that's what Deuteronomy 10:16 and Deuteronomy 36 expound on. Yah says it's of the heart. I'm just going out here thinking here that Jacob and his sons their hearts were circumcised since they were obeying Yah. These Shechem and his father, they had no desire to obey. They were only looking at what they could get.
I'm going to answer that question later, but I want you to remember a couple of things you said.
Mm-hmm.
You said that Jacob's sons' hearts were circumcised because they were obeying Yah. You said Shechem and Hamor were being deceptive. I want you to remember that. But we're going to get to it.
Yes, I just had a question about this connecting with the previous chapters. In the past, isn't it more like a cultural tradition of them back then when they made a deal, they would like do an oath, like have a meal or something? When they do that,
They would.
like Laban and Jacob and Abraham and the other people, like they didn't just say, okay, if you do this, we'll do it. And they made an oath, right?
Right.
So I noticed they didn't do that here, but that's all I wanted to point out.
There's another thing I'm going to point out a little bit later that doesn't happen in this chapter as well. But go ahead, Aki.
I just want to say, man, you're doing amazing. I'm glad you're doing this and pointing this out. This is dope. Like, it's real dope. So it's a couple of things. The first part that you brought out with the speaking to the heart goes along with their response, because if they was really being deceptive, if they knew that like what they did was wrong, they wouldn't have came at them the way that they did. They was like, oh, my son just just got that Keith Sweat, talk, hit him with the Keith Sweat, and then she was like, all right, cool. And that's why he's going to him like, look, I wowed her, you know, I think we want to be together. Hey, I'm willing to do this, that, and the third. Let's come together. They didn't come at them like, oh, we took her. They come at like, hey, look, my son, look, my son loves her. We're willing to do one X, Y, and Z, right? And I thought, and I always wondered this while I was studying this, like, is this dude naive, or is this their culture? Like, it's crazy like that. But if, like you said, if you really think about it from a societal standpoint, that makes sense. And the next part that you brought out just recently about them, like, he says that my son, like, in order for you to express your love, you got to be willing to do something. If you're willing to convince your people to be circumcised for that, for like, that's like you coming to your people like, hey, yo, we about to get circumcised, we about to join with these people, like, that is a true expression and dedication. Because if you was really trying to deceive some people, that would be your cutting point. Like, man, man, nah, we ain't doing that, But this other point right here, this last point right here, like, people got to think about this. Like, when you see like a marriage, it's a union of families. That is gain. That's like two businesses doing a partnership together. That is big business. It's like, when a marriage, people don't understand, like, when a marriage happens, that is a union of assets and wealth together. And I think that's part of the reason why the Most High doesn't want us to marry with other nations, or nations like other nations, because we will have to pick up and unify with their culture and their gods and stuff like that. We'll have to take on the good and the bad. That's like marriage and debt. Like, you got to pick up other people's debt or other people's beef and stuff like that. So y'all is like, nah, we ain't trying to, do all that. But thinking it from their standpoint, from Hamor's standpoint, like, hey, yeah, look, like you said, very good point. Hey, it's not just Dinah that they had as a daughter. He had other sons and daughters. He's like, hey, I'm pretty sure that they saw. Yeah, don't forget that Jacob is wealthy, coming from Laban, and blessed. Like, people can see that blessing. So of course people are gonna be like, yo, we need to do whatever we need to do, because this is gonna be a blessing and a benefit for us. Last thing is the thing that Abiyah tells us, I think it was like, what was that, Deuteronomy 28, right? The blessings, right? If you
Mhm.
keep my commandments, these blessings will befall you. You know what I'm saying? Overtake you. But we know that's Yah saying that to Yisrael. But you got to think about it from a literal physical standpoint. Like, when if Hamor and Shechem was to obey the instructions or these instructions from, Israel and Jacob and them, then of course these blessings from them would be for them. So, that's how I see it, like, man. But Torah, like, good, awesome job, Aki.
All praises. All praise to the Most High Yah. All praises. All right, family. We're almost there, so I'm gonna keep reading if you don't mind. Verses 25 through 29. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword, and came upon the city boldly, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep, and their oxen, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. So here is where all the preceding events all come to a head. And there is a decision that we have to make that is dependent on how you viewed those events. The slaying of Shechem and Hamor and all the males of the city, was it justified? It is my opinion that given the evidence we have been shown, this was an unjustified slaughtering of a people. Did anyone else notice that neither Yah nor Elohim is mentioned anywhere in this chapter? Anyone notice that? What this tells me is that the decisions made in this chapter did not come from, nor were they sanctioned by Yah. Although the text reads like Shechem is the initiator of the act that took place, which more than likely he was, the events that follows speaks to this by no means being a one-way decision. This means that Dinah, like Imam mentioned earlier, because she did not cry out, more than likely is a willing participant. Maybe apprehensively, but willingly engaged nonetheless. Shechem knows that what they have done is out of order. So he attempts to do the right thing, at least according to Torah, and he's not even bound by Torah. And he informs his father and reaches out to Jacob to ask for her hand and to offer a dowry. This is all in line with what we're told in Torah. The issue, it seems, arises when Dinah's brothers get involved. And we are told that upon their hearing, they were very wroth. And would appear that an action that has taken place that has nothing to do with them, they internalize in their hearts and minds as an issue that somehow affects them. And that thought and not letting it go, as Ephesians said, gave place for the devil. Perhaps this is an extreme case of insubordination. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. Last two verses, final two verses. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. I'm going to pause here. This is that fear kicking in again, which is why I talked about fear in the beginning. And they said, should he deal with our sister as with an harlot? And the chapter ends. The final two verses, if you have processed the information of this chapter correctly, actually gives us two of the answers that we seek. In verse 30, Jacob rebukes Simeon and Levi by informing them in so many words that what they did was wrong and has caused him to appear loathsome an abomination and morally offensive to the surrounding nations. Not that their morals are anything to write home about, but nonetheless. Verse 31, the sons, their response tells us that there is indeed an issue with insubordination. The sons, at least two at this point, are acting out and making rash decisions on their own without consulting with their father, for one, and ultimately Yah. I suspect that this issue with insubordination did not begin here. I would imagine that the seeds of what happened here is rooted in actions that have previously taken place. We have to remember that every action, every decision that we take and make will undoubtedly have subsequent reactions that occur. And Jacob, previous to this, hasn't always made the best of choices. Even this action taken by Simeon and Levi with the Shechemites will be the cause for future decisions that will affect their seeds that follow them. One more. Train up a child, or Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. It may seem as if I'm showing you this verse in reference to Simeon and Levi, but I'm actually showing you this verse in reference to Dinah. You see, what should have probably occurred is that Jacob should have honored Shechem's request and should have let Dinah go. And I know that's not the most popular answer, but it is the truth. Oftentimes, we can let the actions of others, especially our children, affect us in our decision making. We, like Simeon and Levi, can become very wroth at the things they do, our children. We can also internalize those issues and attempt to make decisions for them on our own. Often we too do it without consulting our Father first. No one, including our children and family, can come to Messiah without being called by Yah. We never know how or if Yah is going to use a person to bring salvation to someone else. Remember, Ruth was a Moabite, and without Ruth, Messiah would not have come in the order and or the arrangement that Yah had ordained. Our calling to be followers of the way is a calling to the truth and a love of it, no matter where it leads. It is a call to be just and righteous in all of our ways and all of our decisions. I knew this was going to be a difficult one, but I want to implore you to put away the outside noise and read this chapter very slowly and completely digest exactly what it says, because it paints a different picture than what we've been told.
Thinking about it, when the father came to talk to Yaakov, it seemed like the two brothers, well, I'm saying those two, but the other brothers might have been involved with the conversation part. They kind of took over because I'm like, did Yaakov himself say, yes, I'm good with this? It seemed like they just took it over and said, we can't do it without circumcision. Is that correct?
What they uttered was a fact. There's a couple things I want to touch on. One, I think I showed we can't really prove how old she was, even if she was 12 or 13, which is not uncommon nowadays. I'm pretty sure it probably wasn't uncommon back then. But even if she was young, what happened happened. And I think we see from the text that, yeah, Shechem may have wooed her. This is what young boys or young men do. We put pressure on females to get what we want. But I think that it wasn't one-sided. It wasn't just Shechem forcing her or, she could have cried out like Ema said, but she didn't, which lets us know that, she was game. She was game. That's number one. Number two, We see him speak kindly to her. We see him doing all the right things. Maybe he's whipped, as we say, but nonetheless, he says the right things and he does the right things, right? He takes ownership. Should they have been doing it? No. Was it wrong for them to be doing it before marriage? Yes, but they did it. And he goes to his father, and him and his father go to Jacob and say, "This happens, and this is what I'm willing to do. I made a mistake. I am willing to do this and this to make this right." Jacob never really gets to speak because his sons intervene. They start saying, "We can't do this. He needs to be circumcised." And, you know, and which is, probably in Jacob's eyes is correct, right? They more than likely he was like, okay, he's told them they need to be circumcised. If you think about it realistically, real world, aspect, all right, he's told them they need to get circumcised. I'll deal with the disrespect later, right? But the thing is in their mind, they had no intentions of honoring that. And we don't know, what transpired between them uttering that and the attack. Maybe Jacob said something to them and they disobeyed. That it wouldn't be, it'd be par for the course with this chapter. But everything that Shechem and Hamor is doing, from what we can see in this chapter, is righteous. Everything that the sons are doing in this chapter is unrighteous. So it's actually the other way around.
Shalom Mishpachah. Goshen Group would like to thank you for viewing this presentation and remind you to feel free to share our videos with anyone you believe may benefit from them. If you would like to learn more about Goshen Group, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and also visit us at www.goshengroup.net. Shalom and blessings.